Hey guys, welcome to my channel Live Bio, and today I'm going to do a podcasting of chapter 1, The Living World. So let's get started. Before that, I wanted to do a request to you that please like, share, and subscribe to my channel for the motivation. So let's start. Born on 5th July 1904 in Kempten, Germany, Ernst Mayr, the Harvard University evolutionary biologist who has been called the Darwin of the 20th century, was one of the 100 greatest scientists of all time. Mayr joined Harvard's Faculty of Art and Sciences in 1953 and retired in 1975, assuming the title Alexander Agassiz Professor of Zoology Emeritus. Throughout his nearly 80-year career, his research spanned ornithology, taxonomy, zoogeography, evolution, systematics, and the history and philosophy of biology. He almost single-handedly made the origin of species diversity the central question of evolutionary biology that it is today. He also pioneered the currently accepted definition of a biological species. Mayr was awarded the three prizes widely regarded as the triple crown of biology: the Balzan Prize in 1983, the International Prize for Biology in 1994, and the Crafoord Prize in 1999. Mayr died at the age of 100 in the year 2004. Now, the chapter starts from here. How wonderful is the living world! The wide range of living types is amazing. The extraordinary habitats in which we find living organisms, be it cold mountains, deciduous forest, ocean, freshwater lakes, deserts, or hot springs, leave us speechless. The beauty of a galloping horse, of the migrating birds, the valley of flowers, or the attacking shark evokes awe and a deep sense of wonder. The ecological conflict and corporations among members of a population and among population of a community, or even the molecular traffic inside a cell, make us deeply reflect on what indeed is life. This question has two implicit questions within it. The first is a technical one and seeks answer to what living is as opposed to the non-living, and the second is a philosophical one and seeks answer to what the purpose of life is. As scientists, we shall not attempt answering the second questions. We will try to reflect on what is living. First topic is what is living. When we try to define living, we conventionally look for distinctive characteristics exhibited by living organisms: growth, reproduction, ability to sense environment, and mount a suitable response come to our mind immediately as unique feature of living organism. One can add a few more features like metabolism, ability to self-replicate, self-organize, interact, and emergence to this list. Let us try to understand each of these. All living organisms grow. Increase in mass and increase in number of individuals are twin characteristics of growth. A multicellular organism grow by cell division. In plants, this growth by cell division occurs continuously throughout their lifespan. In animals, this growth is seen only up to a certain age. However, cell division occurs in certain tissues to replace lost cells. Unicellular organisms grow by cell division. One can easily observe this in vitro culture by simply counting the number of cells under the microscope. In majority of higher animals and plants, growth and reproduction are mutually exclusive events. One must remember that increase in body mass is considered as growth. Non-living objects also grow if we take increase in body mass as a criteria for growth. Mountains, boulders, and sand molds do grow. However, this kind of growth exhibited by non-living objects is by accumulation. of material on the surface. In living organism, growth is from inside. Growth therefore cannot be taken as a defining property of living organism. Conditions under which it can be observed in all living organisms have to be explained, and then we understand that it is a characteristic of living systems. A dead organism does not grow. Now, second, reproduction likewise is a characteristic of living organism. In multicellular organism, reproduction refers to the production of progeny possessing features more or less similar to those of parents. Invariably and implicitly, we refer to sexual reproduction. Organisms reproduce by asexual means and also. Fungi multiply and spread easily due to the millions of asexual spores they produce. In lower organisms like yeast and hydra, we observe budding. In planaria, which is also known as flatworm, we observe true regeneration, that is, a fragmented organism regenerates the lost part of its body and become a new organism. The fungi, filamentous algae, the protonema of mosses all easily multiply by fragmentation. When it comes to unicellular organisms like bacteria, unicellular algae or amoeba, reproduction is synonymous with growth, that is, increase in number of cells. We have already defined growth as equivalent to increase in cell number or mass. Hence, we notice that in single cell organism, we are not very clear about the usage of these two terms, which is growth and reproduction. Further, there are many organisms which do not reproduce, like mules, sterile workers, bees, infertile human couples, etc. Hence, reproduction also cannot be an all-inclusive defining characters of living organism. Of course, no non-living object is capable of reproducing or replicating by itself. Another characteristic of life is metabolism. All living organisms are made of chemicals. These chemicals are small, big, belonging to various classes and size, functions, etc., are constantly being made and changed into some other biomolecules. These conversions are chemical reactions or metabolic reactions. There are thousands of metabolic reactions occurring simultaneously inside all living organisms, be they unicellular or multicellular. All plants, animals, fungi, and microbes exhibit metabolism. The sum total of all the chemical reactions occurring in our body is metabolism. No non-living object exhibits metabolism. Metabolic reactions can be demonstrated outside the body in cell-free system, and isolated metabolic reactions outside the body of an organism performed in a test tube is neither living nor non-living. Hence, while metabolism is a defining feature of all living organisms without exception, isolated metabolic reaction in vitro are not living thing but surely living reactions. Hence, cellular organization of the body is the defining feature of the life forms. Perhaps the most obvious and technically complicated feature of all living organisms is this ability to sense their surroundings or environment and respond to these environmental stimuli, which could be physical, chemical, or biological. We sense our environment through our sense organs. Plants respond to external factors like light, water, temperature, other organisms, pollutants, etc. All organisms from the prokaryotes to the most complex eukaryotes can sense and respond to environmental cues. Photoperiod effect, reproduction in seasonal breeders, both plants and animals. All organisms handle chemicals entering their bodies. All organisms therefore are aware of their surrounding. Human beings is the only organism who is aware of himself, that is, has self-consciousness. Consciousness therefore becomes the defining property of living organism. When it comes to human being, it is all more difficult to define the living state. We observe patients lying in coma in hospital virtually supported by machines which replace heart and lungs. The patient is otherwise brain dead. The patient has no self-consciousness. Are such patients who never come back to normal life, living or non-living? It's a question. In higher classes, you will come to know that all living phenomena are due to underlying interactions. Properties of tissues are not present in the constituent cells but arise as a result of interactions among the constituent cells. Similarly, properties of cellular organization are not present in the molecular constituents of the organelles but arise as a result of interactions among the molecular components comprising the organelles. These interactions result in emergent properties at a higher level of organization. This phenomena is true in the hierarchy or organizational complexity at all levels. Therefore, we can say that living organisms are self-replicating, evolving, and self-regulating interactive systems capable of responding to external stimuli. Biology is the story of life on Earth. Biology is the story of evolution of living organisms on Earth. All living organisms, present, past, future, are linked to one another by the sharing of the common genetic material, but to varying degrees. Next topic is diversity in the living world. If you look around, you will see a large variety of living organisms, be it potted plants, insects, birds, your pets, and other animals and plants. There are also several organisms that you cannot see with your naked eye, but they are all around you. If you were to increase the area that you make observations in, the range and variety of organisms that you see would increase. Obviously, if you were to visit a dense forest, you would probably see a much greater number and kinds of living organisms in it. Each different kind of plants and animals or organism that you see represents a species. The number of species that are known and described range between 1.7 to 1.8 million. This refers to biodiversity or the number and types of organisms present on Earth. We shall remember here that as we explore new areas and even old ones, new organisms are continuously being identified. As stated earlier, there are millions of plants and animals in the world. We know the plants and animals in our own area by their local names. These local names would vary from place to place, even within a country. Probably you would recognize the confusion that would be created if we did not find ways and means to talk to each other to refer to organisms we are talking about. Hence, there is a need to standardize the naming of living organisms such that a particular organism is known by the same name all over the world. This process is called nomenclature. Obviously, nomenclature or naming is only possible when the organism is described correctly, and we know to what organism the name is attached to. This is identification. In order to facilitate this study, number of scientists have established procedures to assign a scientific name to each known organism. This is acceptable to biologists all over the world. For plant scientists, names are based on agreed principles and criteria, which are provided in International Code for Botanical Nomenclature. You may ask, which is ICBN. You may ask, how are animals named? Which is an question. Animal taxonomists have evolved International Code of Zoological Nomenclature (ICZN). The scientific names ensure that each organism has only one name. Description of any organism should enable the people in any part of the world to arrive at the same name. They also ensure that such a name has not been used for any other known organism. Biologists follow universally accepted principles to provide scientific names to known organisms. Each name has two components: the genetic name, the generic name, and the specific epithet. The system of providing a name with two components is called the binomial nomenclature. This naming system given by Carolus Linnaeus is being practiced by biologists all over the world. This naming system using a two-word format was found convenient. Let us take the example of mango to understand the way of providing scientific names better. The scientific name of mango is written as Mangifera indica. Let us see how it is a binomial name. In this name, Mangifera represents the genus while indica is a particular species or a specific epithet. Other universal rules of nomenclature are as follows. First point, biological names are generally in Latin and written in italics. They are Latinized or derived from Latin irrespective of their origin. Second point, the first word in a biological name represents the genus while the second component denotes the specific epithet. Third point, both the words in a biological name, when handwritten, are separately underlined or printed in italics to indicate their Latin origin. Fourth point, the first word denoting the genus starts with a capital letter while the specific epithet starts with a small letter. It can be illustrated with the example of Mangifera indica. Name of the author appears after the specific epithet that is at the end of the biological name and is written in an abbreviated form. Example, Mangifera indica Linn. It indicates that this species was first described by Linnaeus. Since it is nearly impossible to study all the living organisms, it is necessary to devise some means to make this possible. This process is classification. Classification is the process by which anything is grouped into convenient categories based on some easily observable characters. For example, we easily recognize groups such as plants and animals, or dogs, cats, or insects. The moment we use any of these terms, we associate certain characters with the organism in that group. What image do you see when you think of a dog? Obviously, each one of us will see dog and not cat. Now, if we were to think of Alsatians, we know what we are talking about. Similarly, suppose we were to say mammals, you would of course think of animal with external ears and body hairs. Likewise, in plant, if we try to talk of wheat, the picture in each of our mind will be of wheat plant, not rice or any other plant. Hence, all these dogs, cats, mammals, wheat, rice, plants, animals, etc. are convenient categories we use to study organisms. The scientific term for these categories is taxa. Here you must recognize that taxa can indicate categories at very different levels. Plants also form a taxa, where wheat is also a taxa. Similarly, animal, mammal, dog are all taxa. But you know that a dog is a mammal and mammals are animals. Therefore, animals, mammals, and dogs represent taxa at different levels. Hence, based on characteristics, all living organisms can be classified into different taxa. This process of classification is taxonomy. External and internal structure, along with the structure of cell development, process, and ecological information of organisms are essential and form the basis of modern taxonomic studies. Hence, characterization, identification, classification, and nomenclature are the process of that are basic to taxonomy. Taxonomy is not something new. Human beings have always been interested in knowing more and more about the various kinds of organisms, particularly with reference to their own use. In early days, human beings needed to find sources for their basic needs of food, clothing, and shelter. Hence, the earliest classification were based on the uses of various organisms. Human beings were since long not only interested in knowing more about different kinds of organisms and their diversities, but also the relationship among them. This branch of study was referred to as systematics. The word systematics is derived from the Latin word systema, which means systematic arrangement of organisms. Linnaeus used Systema Naturae as the title of his publication. The scope of systematics was later enlarged to include identification, nomenclature, and classification. Systematics takes into account evolutionary relationship between organisms. Now the next topic is taxonomic categories. Classification is not a single step process but involves hierarchy of steps in which each step represents a rank or category. Since the category is a part of overall taxonomic arrangement, it is called the taxonomic category, and all categories together constitute the taxonomic hierarchy. Each category referred to as a unit of classification, in fact, represents a rank and is commonly termed as taxon. Taxonomic category and hierarchy can be illustrated by an example. Insects represent a group of organisms sharing common features like three pairs of joint legs. It means insects are recognizable concrete objects which can be classified and thus were given a rank or category. Can you name other such group of organisms? Remember, groups represent category further denote rank. Each rank or taxon in fact represent a unit of classification. These taxonomic group category are distinct biological entities and not merely morphological aggregates. Taxonomical studies of all known organisms have led to the development of common category such as kingdom, phylum, or division, class, order, family, genus, and species. All organisms, including those in the plant and animal kingdoms, have species as the lowest category. Now, the question you may ask is how to place an organism in various categories. The basic requirement is the knowledge of character of an individual or group of organisms. This helps in identifying similarities and dissimilarities among the individual of the same kind of organism as well as of other kind of organism. Now the next topic is species. Taxonomic studies considered a group of individual organisms with fundamental similarities as a species. One should be able to distinguish one species from the other closely related species based on the distinct morphological differences. Let us consider Mangifera indica, Solanum, tuberosum, and Panthera leo. All the three names indica, tuberosum, and leo represent the specific epithet, while the first words Mangifera, Solanum, and Panthera are genera and represents another higher level of taxon or category. Each genus may have one or more than one specific epithets representing different organisms but having morphological similarities. For example, Panthera has another specific epithet called Tigris, and Solanum includes species like Nigrum and Melongena. Human beings belong to the species Sapiens, which is grouped in the genus Homo. The scientific name thus for human being is written as Homo sapiens. Another topic is genus. Genus comprises a group of related species which has more characters in common in comparison to species of other genera. We can say that genera are aggregates of closely related species. For example, potato and brinjal are two different species, but both belong to the genus Solanum. Lion, leopard, and tigris with several common features. Lion, Panthera leo, leopard, Panthera pardus, and tigris, Panthera tigris. Okay, and tiger, Panthera tigris, with several common features, are all species of the genus Panthera. This genus differs from another genus, Felis, which include cats. Another topic is family. The next category, family, has a group of related genera with still less number of similarities as compared to genus and species. Families are categorized on the basis of both vegetative and reproductive features of plant species. Among plants, for example, three different genera, Solanum, Petunia, and Datura, are placed in the family Solanaceae. Among animals, for example, genus Panthera, comprising lion, tiger, leopard, is put along with genus Felis, which is a cat, in the family Felidae. Similarly, if you observe the features of a cat and a dog, you will find some similarities and some differences, as well as they are separated into two different families, Felidae and Canidae, respectively. Another topic is order. You have seen earlier that categories like species, genus, and families are based on a number of similar characters. Generally, order and other higher taxonomic categories are identified based on the aggregate of characters. Order, being a higher category, is the assemblage of families which exhibit a few similar characters. The similar characters are less in number as compared to different genera included in a family. Plant families like Convolvulaceae, Solanaceae are included in the order Polymonoes, mainly based on the floral characters. The animal order Carnivora include families like Valera and Canada. Class. This is the next topic, class. This category includes related orders. For example, order Primata, comprising monkey, gorilla, and gibbon, is placed in class Mammalia along with order Carnivora, that includes animals like tiger, cat, and dog. Class Mammalia has other order also. Next topic is phylum. Classes comprising animals like fishes, amphibians, reptiles, birds, along with mammals, constitute the next higher category called phylum. All these based on the common features like presence of notochord and dorsal hollow neural system are included in phylum Chordata. In case of plants, classes with a few similar characters are assigned to a higher category called division. Next topic is kingdom. All animals belonging to various phyla are assigned to the highest category called kingdom Animalia. In the classification system of animals, the kingdom Plantae, on the other hand, is distinct and comprises all plants from various divisions. Henceforth, we will refer to these two groups as animals and plant kingdoms. The taxonomic category from the species to kingdom have been shown in ascending orders, starting with species. These are broad category, however, taxonomists have also developed subcategories in their hierarchy to facilitate more sound and scientific placement of various taxa. Look at the hierarchy in figure 1.1. Can you recall the basis of arrangement? Say, for example, as we go higher from species to kingdom, the number of common characteristics goes on decreasing. Lower the taxa, more are the characteristics that the member within the taxon share. However, higher the category, greater is the difficulty of determining the relationship to other taxa at the same level. Hence, the problem of classification becomes more complex. This table indicates the taxonomic category to which some common organisms like housefly, man, mango, and wheat belong to. Next topic is taxonomic aid. Taxonomic studies of various species of plant, animals, and other organisms are useful in agriculture, forestry, industry, and in general in knowing our bio resources and their diversity. These studies would require correct classification and identification of organisms. Identification of organisms require intensive laboratory and field studies. The collection of actual specimens of plant and animal species is essential and is the prime source of taxonomic studies. These are also fundamental to studies and essential for training in systematics. It is used for classification of an organism, and the information gathered is also stored along with the specimens. In some cases, the specimens is preserved for future studies. Biologists have established certain procedures and techniques to store and preserve the information as well as specimens. Some of these are explained to help you understand the usage of these aids. Herbarium is the next topic. Herbarium is a storehouse of collected plant specimens that are dried, pressed, and preserved on sheets. Further, these sheets are arranged according to a universally accepted system of classification. These specimens, along with their descriptions on herbarium sheet, become a storehouse or a repository for future use. The herbarium sheets also carry a label providing information about date and place of collection, English local and botanical names, family, collectors' names, etc. Herbaria also serve as quick referral system in taxonomical studies. Next topic is botanical gardens. These specialized gardens have collections of living plants for reference. Plant species in these gardens are grown for identification purpose, and each plant is labeled indicating its botanical scientific name and its family. The famous botanical gardens are at Kew, England, Indian Botanical Garden, Hara, India, and at National Botanical Research Institute, Lucknow, India. Museum is the next topic. Biological museums are generally set up in educational institutes such as schools and colleges. Museums have collections of preserved plant and animals specimens for study and reference. Specimens are preserved in the containers or jars in preservative solutions. Plants and animal specimens may also be preserved as dry specimen. Insects are preserved in insect boxes after collecting, killing, and pinning. Larger animals like birds and mammals are usually stuffed and preserved. Museums often have collections of skeletons of animals too. Next topic is zoological parks. These are the places where wild animals are kept in protected environments under human care, and which enables us to learn about their food habitats and behaviors. All All animals in a zoo are provided as far as possible the conditions similar to their natural habitats. Children love visiting these parks, commonly called zoos. Next topic is key. Key is another taxonomical aid used for identification of plant and animals based on the similarities and dissimilarities. The key are based on the contrasting characters, generally in a pair called couplets. It represents the choice made between two opposite options. This results in acceptance of only one and rejections of the other. Each statement in the key is called a lead. Separate taxonomic key are required for each taxonomic category, such as family, genus, species, for identification purpose. Key are generally analytical in nature. Flora, manuals, monographs, and catalogs are some other means of recording descriptions. They also help in correct identification. Flora contain the actual account of habitat and distribution of plant of a given area. These provide the index to the plant species found in a particular area. Manuals are useful in providing information for identification of names of species found in an area. Monographs contain information on any one taxon. Thank you, and please like, share, and subscribe to my channel.